Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, the Red Raiders take it to the edge in Norman, Oklahoma, and live to tell about it. We're into it next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. And now new customers joining today get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. So get started by visiting FanDuel.com/locked on. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you, my man. Kicking off a brand new week, albeit a fast and furious week, as more hoops is just around the corner as the Red Raiders remain on the road away from the LBK, but got that quick road trip started over the weekend and still some time today to bask in the glow of a top 15 win on the road. We've seen some similar things contribute to improbable wins from game to game to game in the Big 12 Conference for Texas Tech, but it seems like each one has something different going on. So yes, while at one point or another, it did seem improbable, like in some other games, Texas Tech was able to pull it off, but sort of a new variety of characters leading the way here as you got 27 from a guy off the bench and Chance McMillan and some clutch free throw shooting down the stretch to allow the Red Raiders to pick up as impressive of a win as they've gotten so far this season, man. You've seen a lot of Texas Tech basketball. You've seen a lot of Texas Tech basketball on the road. You've seen plenty of action inside the Lloyd Noble Center. But have you ever seen anything like that, man? A wild one that won't be soon forgotten.
Yeah, in your last trip there, you're going to end up leaving that building having won back-to-back years. And what a gift. This isn't his intention. He's trying to win them all. But what a gift Grant McCasland has given this fan base. In your last trips to Austin and Norman, Oklahoma, in basketball, which is that's the only thing he can control, you leave there with a dub in your back pocket. I mean that's pretty cool. Whatever goes on the rest of the season or whatever you end up doing. I mean, that is something that I think is pretty salty because both teams are good. You won, in both places. And this one was I knew you were going to get Oklahoma's, best spirited kind of effort. And you did. I think there's some flaws with their team, but they play really hard. They're very athletic. The officials let them play very physical, which I disagreed with at times. But you survived it, and you were down 69-58. And I'm trying to remember 5 to 6 minutes left. And granted, you had beaten Kansas State down 8 by, I think, 3 minutes or with 3 minutes left, and you survived that one. But that was at home. But yeah, it just wasn't going well. But what this team has been able to do really in back-to-back Saturdays is they've essentially played the same game. They've played the 32-33 point first half, and then they've played the 52 to 53 point second half. It's almost eerie how the scoring output is almost directly. I mean, it's exactly the same versus BYU as it is Oklahoma. And one of the things that they are able to do to help them score so much in the second halves, I should say, is they are an elite level free throw shooting team right now. They are knocking down free throws at a high clip. I mean, you look at like what Pop was 9 of 10, Toussaint 3 of 4. You were 16 of 19. I mean, Oklahoma missed 9 of them. It's hard to feel sorry for a Sooner team that played hard, all this and that, when you miss that many free throws in a 1-point loss. Now, granted, I don't know that three that got heaved up at the buzzer that went in. I don't know if that affected the over-under total or I don't think it affected the point spread or whatever because Texas Tech was a 3.5-point underdog. But I thought, that shot went in. And I'm looking at the score like, okay, we have a 4-point lead, right? I mean, just making sure nobody's going to take it away from me. There's no 4-point spot on the floor that he just hit it from, like the Harlem Globetrotters or anything. But yeah, so it was a lot of fun because they're well, and we'll keep going here. But I thought Saturday was a lot of heart and grit, and we could talk about some of that too.
Yeah, there's no question. I said after the K-State game, they're the new BYOG team in America. Bring your own guts, and they were packing a load going to Norman, Oklahoma. And you're right, man. At some point watching the game, I guess when it got right under a minute and maybe you were up by 2 and then you go on to make 7 consecutive free throws, I said at that point, make your free throws, win the game. It is as simple as that. You make your free throws, you're going to win the basketball game. And they did that. And also to boot, final 6 for 6 from the field to finish the game. Is that good? I don't know. Either way, Texas Tech found a recipe. They're giving the fans every bit of their money's worth by going ahead and, hey, we'll get down to 8 or 9 here. Then we'll retake the lead. Oh, but we're going to get down to 8 or 9 again or whatever it might be. So I think every ticket buyer leaves highly entertained as well. But, yeah, the cardiac kids or whatever you want to call them, man, they are down but never out, it seems like. And, Chris, this is it kind of seems like everyone, coming into Big 12 play, and as we have gotten into Big 12 play, they've been chopping some wood home and away. Correct me if you know this. I think I saw yesterday Texas Tech remains the only team in the Big 12 Conference with a winning road record as we sit here about to enter the month of February. But the credibility or national attention, slow to come, and maybe for some reasons that I understand, maybe some reasons inherently biased and built into the logo historically as well. But you can't ignore these guys now, can you? I mean, you go on the road. I think Oklahoma was number 11 in one poll. Don't know exactly where they were in the others, but you get as good a one as you've gotten so far. And I'm going to imagine that this week they will not be ignored as far as some of that national attention is concerned.
Yeah, and there's still going to be some doubters out there just waiting for them to falter. But you do continue to earn respect. There is no doubt. And bottom line is, man, if you're at the top, of this conference race, you're going to get, when it's all said and done, you will have a lot of street cred with the committee and everybody else, just because of how good this league is. But Kellen Buffington, 806 GM, shout out to him, shout out to Buff. He's good people. He tweeted something. We were on the bus on the way back to the arena, or we were on the plane, and we just landed back in Lubbock on Saturday evening, and he said something like, hey, analytics, man, we use them. I appreciate it. It's a data deal, and we certainly look at it and try to train kids and recruit kids toward it and all these things. He goes, but one thing the analytics doesn't point out or have a stat for is like your heart and grit, and you mentioned guts, because there's just, if you look at your team, and that's what, because there's still a level of, and this is where I think the folks that don't respect you look at it, there's still a level of, I don't know how they're doing this. And I understand it.
Yeah.
Because there's not a bona fide, like I'm talking no-brainer, all-conference guy on your team. There's not a no-brainer, bona fide NBA dude on your team. And a lot of times that's what it takes to win a league like this, or to be in first or whatever. And most of these teams, a lot of times you have multiple, and because you look at Baylor's got a one and done on their team. Kansas, McCullough and Dickinson are going to be in the NBA. You look at Oklahoma. I don't see any pieces there that would necessarily fit that criteria. But you get what I'm saying, and so I certainly get but they all have a role. Nobody's worried about who gets the credit or who scores or whatever. I think that they all are selfless, because you see a lot of guys facilitating, but they all have their role. It's like Warren protects the rim. Joe's like on the ball defender. He led you in steals on Saturday. Warren had the 3 blocks. Papa just consistently scores and facilitates and play makes. Chance McMillan, does a little bit of everything. Darian Williams, he was 2 of 10 from the field the other day, but he has 7 points, 11 boards, and then 5 assists. He just fills up the stat sheet.
One turnover against one turnover.
Yes. and that's also the common thing. Man, a great free throw shooting team, but boy, they all do a really good job making a conscious effort of taking care of the ball. And then Grant, Grant is very intense, but he's also very calm. And I think it maybe the right word is measured. But I think the team feeds off of it because they don't freak out. There's not a lot of bad body language. There's not a lot of, and they are making a habit out of winning close games. And go look at Coach McCaslin's road record over the last several years at North Texas. I mean, he tried to tell everybody too, hey, folks, Joey McGuire was even calling him, back during the football season. Hey, you got any tips on road wins? And I think that whatever they do. And essentially it's just play well and make your free throws and don't turn it over and keep a tighter huddle and don't freak out. I mean, there's something there, man, where they're pretty good at it. You obviously have another tough test coming up tomorrow night.
Let's get a little further into some of these individual efforts. First, today's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. And eBay Motors has you covered with everything you need to maintain your vehicle and keep that ride or die ride on the road. Or if you're just looking to elevate your car's game to the next level of performance, they got what you're looking for with roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, superchargers, and accessories of all kinds to fit your style. Whether you're looking for speed, power, or design, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts to perfectly fit what you need. So just head over today to ebay.com/motors, where you're going to always find exactly what you're looking for, and with no risk because of eBay's guaranteed fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit just right every time, or your money back, keeping you burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to keep your ride or die ride on the road and moving your life forward at ebay.com/motors. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions do apply. Obviously, that conversation has to begin with Chance McMillan, who we have seen him get blackout unconscious before. So we know what he can do, but I still don't even know if we've seen the best yet. The Butler outing was a sight to behold, but this time around 6 for 8 from beyond the arc. He goes for 27, 10 for 13 from the field, but also is adding 8 rebounds to that. We talked about him just last week as a guy that's been battling on the boards in maybe a way we didn't quite anticipate. But I'm having a hard time going back, a decade plus, Chris, remembering anyone that's gotten close to that scoring output as a reserve coming off the bench. I hate to even call him a bench player, but that's technically where he starts the game. So he does fit that category. I don't know if somebody comes to mind for you, but I got pretty much nothing to compare that to as far as a dude coming off of the bench and giving you that kind of impact.
Yeah, maybe the last guy, Brandon Francis, I think could do that for you, and did so a couple times. Heck, in the national title game, as a matter of fact, or maybe he was a starter in that game in particular. But yeah, this one was Brandon wasn't able to do this because if you look at his stats, 27 and 8, you're thinking, and you don't know who Chance McMillan is, you're thinking he's a post player. They're like dumping it in the paint and he's working that baby hook shot, and all those things. No, this is a guard here. And it goes, the rebounding part is as or more impressive than the shooting, which is otherworldly. But because we talked about this was going to be the big key in the game, and you have to team rebound. Your guards are going to have to get involved. Teams are making a conscious effort, like finding Warren Washington, and they block him out. And so somebody's got to go get it. And I think Darion Williams and some of these guards have done a really good job with that. But you have some guys on your team that are what we would call highly flammable. Pop Isaacs and Chance McMillan can go nuts at any given moment. Both semi-streaky. I think both would tell you, I wish I was a little more consistent with some of it. But it's fascinating to watch, and this was a repeat of the Butler game, although this one ended up in a win. But you don't win without what he was able to do from the perimeter. I mean, the shot he hits with, I think it was about a minute to go in the corner opposite of Tech's bench, because I kept telling Haxton on the broadcast, somebody at the tail end of this thing is going to have to hit a big shot to get you over the hump, and you scored a bucket. Oklahoma comes down, they hit a 3, and you're like, oh man, here we go, And then Millen comes right back down, hits a 3, and I thought at that point it was like, okay, you're not losing this game. He just continues to answer, and it's kind of like Pop last week. I talked about the similar games and the scoring outputs. it's like Chance McMillan was just like, I'm not letting these guys lose today, man. We're just not losing. We're going home with this win in our back pocket. Peace out, Lloyd Noble Center. Won't miss you. So I was happy to see it. And he's so humble. I mean, he's very mild-mannered. He's just – I mean, what about the alley-oop that he has early in the game?
Oh, that's the score of the night. Holy cow.
Athlete, but he's an elite. And I don't want to throw that word around too much, but he's an elite shooter. I heard a discussion, people talking about Tech's team the other day. They're looking at these 3-point percentages, and they're like, there's no way some of these guys can keep it up. And specifically, it was Kerwin Walton and Chance McMillan. I just think that's who these guys are. They may have flaws in their game. You may, and maybe it doesn't stay over 50% for Walton or over 40 for McMillan, but like they've got enough body of work now to where that's just kind of who they are. Some nights it's not going to go that way, but generally speaking, over a period of time, I think that's just who they are. But boy, it's fun to watch.
We've mentioned Warren Washington, 10-7, had 3 blocks to go along with that as well. You mentioned Darian Williams. And I got to tell you, from a Pop Isaacs perspective, 32 points, like we saw in the previous ball game from him, strikes you in a different way. But his effort on Saturday was close to being as impressive of another variety to me, Chris, because whenever you take a look at what was not going down for him from the field, particularly in the first 20 minutes, 1 for 5 in the first half, 1 for 4 from beyond the arc, only 5 points. And you wonder, all right, does a dude check out in that situation? Pop Isaacs chose not to. Gives you 13 in the second half to wind up with 18 total. But the biggest thing I think was just the relentlessness in trying to continue to get to the rim. And then you get to some of those foul situations at the end of the game where it's clutch time. It's clutch gene time. And he's stepping up to the line, knocking down those free throws at the end of the day. 9 for 10 from the free throw line. And just like we're talking about with McMillan, you cannot win the game without that type of impact. And was glad to see that from Pop, albeit in a different way than we saw it a week ago back here in Lubbock.
Yeah, I thought of that second half in front of your bench. I thought they let Oklahoma get real handsy and push and shove with Joe and Pop quite a bit, knocking them off their spot, just hand checking them, having their hands on them, all the things that you're kind of taught not to do or you're not supposed to be allowed to do, but they kind of just let it go. And I thought Pop did a good job of, as he adjusted, because you got shoved around and got the ball taken from you some and all that. That's what helped Oklahoma get a lead. But I think at the tail end of it, you used it to your advantage and used their aggressiveness, and that's how you got to the free throw line. Because there were some good – I say that. There was some evening out calls toward the end of the game where I'm like, oh, that's not a foul on Oklahoma, but they gave it to you. That's just kind of how it went. And I made sure to point that out on the broadcast too. It's like, okay, you got bailed out there, or – this is, I'm not sure if I was Oklahoma, I wouldn't be very frustrated with that. But so it was one of those deals. But I thought Pop, it's just he plays so hard. He just wants to win, and he's gonna figure out ways to score. That's the thing about him. Like you may not like the efficiency at times or the shooting number, but at the end of the night, he's giving you those 17, 18, or in last week's case, 32. And Grant is not near worried about the efficiency as some others are, because at some point, he's got the ball in his hands and he's just having to figure it out and make some plays. Like some of the alley-oops that he threw the other day, though, one of them left-handed to Warren Washington on the dunk. I mean, it's just a great, like, it's the game is starting to slow down for him a bit. Like it takes everybody a second to kind of get a feel what you're going through and what you're dealing with and all that, but he's been fun to watch in this last little stretch here because he's just kind of figuring it out, and he continues to produce for his team. And bottom line is he's a winner, and I think Joe Toussaint is showing you too. He bounced back from a tough game the other day, and he kind of he started to score a little bit. He got some steals. He's got, he just, you're not going to hold him down for too long. And you needed his defense for sure.
Yeah, Pop had some nice dimes. He had a couple of left-handers. I think one was no look. I was watching through television, so I couldn't see his eyes, but kind of looked like it was a little bit of misdirection there. It was fun all the way around to see some of those things coming together for a team that obviously we have seen play together very well. As for, you alluded to it, as for the attempted Soonering that Texas Tech was able to avoid. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And football is close to wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with America's #1 sports book and the official sports book of Locked On. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place only a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. So many ways to spice up the action with FanDuel's safe, secure, and easy-to-use app. Are you really even parlaying if you're not visiting FanDuel's Parlay Hub? I doubt it. So get to FanDuel.com/lockedon today. And if you're a new customer, take advantage of $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place only a $5 bet with FanDuel at FanDuel.com/lockedon, official partner of the NFL. Now, I'm not going to get real uptight about this. We've been jobbed worse by better people. So this is not even going to make like the top 3. But I would tell you, and you already touched on this, the court jesters in the striped shirts that we saw on Saturday, and I guess it's just a coincidence that Doug Sermon always happens to be involved in these types of outings, was quite the sight to behold, Chris. And this is how you really know when a crew sucks, is when both head coaches are leaving the game saying, "What the hell's going on out here?" Now, the feeling that you might have had as an Oklahoma fan in the last, I don't know, 10% of the game, 5% of the game. Well, that was the feeling we had as Tech fans for the first 90% of the game. I don't care if you allow a Royal Rumble. Don't call anything. It's fine with me. Nobody showed up to hear from you anyway, guy with the whistle. Let them have a Royal Rumble. I don't care, but let it happen on both ends of the floor. I think is the question that we're always, or the effort that we're always looking for. You want to call the ticky-tack stuff? Fine. Not my personal preference. But let's go ahead and call it on both ends of the floor. There was such a discrepancy for like 90% of the game that it was almost hard to stomach. I mean, I'm turning to the homies I'm watching the game with, and I'm like, am I taking crazy pills, or like we not getting these same calls? And then down here, it's like arm bar, forearm shiver, Deacon Jones helmet slap. And, all is fair, I guess, in battling against Texas Tech in that kind of way. But then you turn the coin, and the refs are like, all right, I don't know if we got screwed up and mixed up, like we forgot which team is in what jersey, but now we're allowing Texas Tech to knock around Oklahoma, and all of a sudden Oklahoma's getting called for the ticky-tack stuff. I mean, I'm sitting there just like you said a moment ago watching the game when some of those are going down the stretch, some of those calls, and I'm like, okay, I'm glad this is going in our favor. It's still a horrible call. It's still the wrong call. I mean, there hadn't been really a day yet, I guess, this season, Chris, in the Big 12 or otherwise, where I thought like the refs were part of the storyline. I mean, I have to go back and check the episodes. I don't know to what extent we've discussed any of them. There's always frustrating calls here or there. But this was a day where I felt like they were a part of the storyline. Horrific outing by that crew. And again, the same clown seems to always be involved whenever you leave a game with those feelings. So Oklahoma fans, I do feel your pain. Lucky for you, you only had to feel it for about 5% of the game. But yeah, there was a big swap somewhere there at the end. And Grant McCaslin's ability to remain measured, as you already used that word, I think is something you can't quite quantify as far as the positive impact it has on the team, because it would have been easy to blow up. I mean, I don't know if he just like shook that one ref figuratively whenever he was in his face and pumping his fist, like did he just scare the bejesus out of him? That guy's like, all right, we'll call it differently. I was shocked that Coach McCaslin didn't get a technical there in that moment. And I thought if he ever did, it would have been well earned. There was frustration, I imagine, for both head coaches leaving the floor that day.
Yeah, that's always my, and it's an impossible job. It's a very difficult sport to officiate. But my complaint is always about consistency. Because like you said, call it how you want. Just because what you teach players is if you're going to call it one way, because every crew, it's like a home plate umpire. Everybody's strike zone's a little bit different, I mean, it just is. And so that's what frustrates pitchers. Same premise here is like, okay, I've learned your strike zone through a couple innings, but then now you've changed it, like I've adjusted, and now what are we doing? And I think when you teach players, you adjust to the game. Hey, are they going to let us go today, or are they going to call everything and all that? And there's some times where you're kind of wishing for one or the other based on the matchup or how your team is built or whatever. And I just, like, to sum it up, the foul that sat Kerwin Walton down for the game was a joke.
Yeah.
Absolute comedy that he fouls out on a phantom call when I'm watching like Sam Godwin at the other end just forearm shiver, put two hands in the back of Warren Washington.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, there is a lot of contact. When his last week, I watched the referee walk over to Grant McCaslin and go, "Hey, you can't do these things." And I'm like, "Well, I guess you can." So these are the things that are frustrating. However, having said that, there was some calls that you benefited from at the end.
Oh, yeah.
To where I'm like, because you look up at the end of the day, and it's the even up game, and there's some discrepancies in a lot of these games, but it's 18 fouls called on Texas Tech, 19 fouls called on Oklahoma. And well, no, hold on. Yeah, you had 19 fouls called on you, and 18 called on them. So you had one more foul called on you. Yeah. So it's even. So that way, both coaches can be frustrated. They can't point to that. Oklahoma did shoot 5 more free throws than you did. But yeah, it's and this is why I credit your team, because I thought you got hosed a bit, but you stayed in there long enough, because a lot of teams would just fold and then it's off to the races and it doesn't matter. But you actually hung in there and fought back enough to get some calls, that would benefit you. Because I've seen that movie before in that place to where you just kind of crowds into it, you get that run, and you just kind of melt. You come down, you miss a couple of shots, and then it just gets louder and louder, and then you've got, okay, well, I've got no more timeouts left, and then you're just like, okay, let's go home with a 15-point loss, and we tried, we hung in there, it just got away from us. We'll get them next time. But you survived the initial run and fought back, and But yeah, you're right. Both coaches, maybe that says something about good officiating that both coaches were pissed. I don't know.
Hell no, we ain't going that route.
But, at least one coach didn't feel like they were screwed or whatever. I mean, I saw Jerome Tang say over the weekend, a very veteran official, he got teed up because he didn't like what Gary Maxwell, another veteran official, had said to one of his guys, Cam Carter. He's like, you can't talk to my player like that. He goes, it's so I told him, and he gave me a tech for it,
That's the other thing. The worst variety of official is the one that has anything to say at all other than making the call. Nobody's here to visit with you, buddy. Keep the whistle in your mouth, blow it, go have your little talk with the scorer's table when you got to make the call. That's it. You ain't the coach. You ain't my buddy, my guy, my pal, my chief, nothing like that. Don't want to hear from you. And if you ever played hoops on any level, I'm sure you got an official in your mind right now that you remember being that guy.
The best part. Well, the best part, and this involves Doug Sermons, and this involves the previous game, which we went full circle. There was a game, and I'm trying to remember who it was against. It was one of your last non-conference games, and Warren Washington blocks a shot, and I was doing TV for this game. He blocks a shot, and he's like, "Get that out of here." And he's like, whatever. And Doug Sermons looks at him and is like, "What?" He's like, boom, tease him up. Okay. And so later in that same game, he blocks one and he puts his hand over his mouth. Okay. And Doug Sermons kind of smiled. Well, at the tail end of this game, big block along like the baseline right in front of the Sooner bench. It was a shot. He blocks it out of bounds and he's feeling it. Warren Washington is. And he is walking toward like Doug Sermons, and he's like, "Give me that," and he looks at him and he like all of a sudden his face changes. He like calms down. He runs over to Doug, puts his hands on his shoulders like, "I'm so sorry, I didn't say anything. I swear." And Doug Sermons like got a kick out of it. I appreciated that little action because it stems from like what 3 or 4 weeks ago. And so anyway, and Grant McCaslin is right in front of me, and he turns around, looks at his bench, and he's just laughing because he remembers this same thing. Anyway, so I wanted to point that out. So I appreciated Sermon's not overreacting and like going, "Hey, man, see, maybe I taught you something. Just don't taunt somebody after a block shot." I don't know, but fascinating theater is what it makes for. But, yeah, it all equals a win.
That's exactly right. Fascinating theater and something we get to be fascinated by on the heels of a win. I doubt they're enjoying that theater so much. talking about it in Norman, Oklahoma today. All right, Tech remains on the road, and we're back at it, setting the table. Coming up on the other side is Texas Christian is fitting the description of the next potential victim, but it is a busy week otherwise. So join us tomorrow as well for a Big 12 football scheduling conversation. We're going to kick out the way it should be, the Locked On Texas Tech dream Red Raider football schedule. And then a little bit later in the day, of course, we'll have it revealed what it's going to look like for real. So a lot going down this week. Make sure you're subscribed so you miss nothing on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Chris, enjoyed it, man. I appreciate the time, and we'll do it again tomorrow.
You got it, man. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Keep hope alive, everybody, and enjoy these road wins, man. Adversity is nearby. This league is too difficult, but while you get them, man, you just keep stacking them up, and don't apologize for anything. Just keep enjoying it, and we'll see how long we can keep this run going, man. But appreciated the time today, Callan. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Savor the flavor, and thanks for being out there. Hope you're back tomorrow to savor with us once again here for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.